in the picturesque county town of Warwick, with its 14th century castle, its Georgian half-timbered houses like those in Mill Street, the Elizabethan oaken house, now a doll's museum, the old courthouse built about 1724, the market hall of 1670, the marble house of about 1620 origin, and many, many other notable places of interest, I am standing opposite number 2 Jury Street, the postal number of the Pageant house, which stands in the very beautiful setting of the Pageant House gardens, and at one time the residence of the Nelson family. In this house, the Borough of Warwick has its offices, next door to the old council house. Above the main entrance to Pageant House there is a panel bearing the inscription which reads, "This house and garden were acquired by the town of Warwick as a gift from the committee of the Warwick Pageant held in 1906, and are intended to be a permanent memorial of that notable event." Entering through the main door, I find myself in the hallway, where the walls are adorned with the portraits of many distinguished citizens who have at one time or another occupied the office of mayor of this ancient town. Passing along a further small hallway, I am confronted by a staircase which leads to the anteroom adjoining the ballroom, where today, this 13th day of May in the year 1968, the conferring of the honorary freedom of the Borough of Warwick upon Alderman Guy Montague Nelson, Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Deputy Lieutenant of the County of Warwick, Justice of the Peace, will be conducted. At 3:15 p.m. precisely, the members of the Council will leave the Mayor's retiring room, where they are all assembled at this present, and proceed to the ballroom via the Pageant House staircase, taking their seats according to precedent. At 3:28, preceded by the mace, Alderman and Mrs. Nelson, escorted by the Mayor, Councillor Phillip William Nock, the Mayoress and the Town Clerk, will take their places on the dais. And at 3:30 p.m, which will be in just a moment or two, the ceremony of presentation will commence, when the Mayor will call upon the Town Clerk to read the formal resolution of the Council, conferring the honorary freedom upon Alderman Nelson.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will declare this meeting open, and I will commence the business of the ceremony by asking the Town Clerk to read the formal resolution of the Council conferring the honorary freedom of the Borough upon Alderman Nelson. Mr. Town Clerk.
The Borough of Warwick, at a special meeting of the Council of the Borough of Warwick, convened in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 1933 and held in the Council Chamber, Pageant House, Warwick, on the 27th day of March 1968 at 5:50 o'clock in the afternoon. His Worship the Mayor, Councillor Phillip William Nock, in the chair. It was moved by His Worship the Mayor, seconded by Alderman Edward Roberts Bartlett, and resolved by not less than 2/3 of the members voting thereon, that the Warwick Borough Council, in pursuance of section 259, subsection 2 of the Local Government Act 1933, do hereby confer upon Alderman Guy Montague Nelson, O.B.E. D.L.J.P., the honorary freedom of the Borough of Warwick, in recognition of the eminent services which he has given to the said borough during the last 40 years, and do hereby admit him to be an honorary freedom of the said borough accordingly. During that time he has held inter alia the following offices or appointments: Warwick Town Council, first elected 1928, Mayor, coronation year 1936-7, and again 1939 to 1941, Alderman since 1942, Warwick Racecourse, Chairman of the committee since its formation 1950. Henry VIII Charity, appointed a trustee 1929, Chairman since 1942. Thomas Oakham's Charity, an original trustee, appointed 1934. Austin Edwards Charity, Chairman of Trustees since 1948. Lord Leicester Hospital, appointed a governor by Act of Parliament 1956. Warwick United Charities, trustee since 1939. Warwick Schools, appointed a governor 1935. Chairman of Governors since 1938. Warwickshire Police Authority, appointed to committee 1938, Deputy Chairman 1956 to 1966, Chairman since 1966. Warwickshire County Council, Member 1942 to 1946. Justice of the Peace, appointed 1938. Order of the British Empire, 1959, awarded for public services in Warwickshire. Deputy Lieutenant of the County of Warwick, 1967. Given under the Common Seal this 13th day of May, 1968. The Common Seal of the Mayor, Aldermen and Burgesses of the Borough of Warwick was hereunto affixed in the presence of Phillip W. Nock, Mayor, H.B. Dolphin, Town Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Town Clerk. Mr. Alderman, members of the Council, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all of us here today are privileged to be present on a rare and unique occasion in the history of this ancient borough. For we are here to witness the conferring of the honorary freedom of the Borough of Warwick, the highest honour that the town can bestow, upon Alderman Guy Nelson, Member of the Order of the British Empire, a Deputy Lieutenant of this county, and a Justice of the Peace, in recognition of his 40 years of devoted and loyal public service to the town of Warwick. I use the words rare and unique in no exaggerated or idle sense. And I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you will agree that I do not when I remind you that this is only the 7th occasion when this ceremony has taken place in Warwick, the last time being over 16 years ago. And that amongst Alderman Nelson's 6 illustrious predecessors, we number men such as Lord Avon, a former Prime Minister, and Field Marshal Viscount Montgomery of Alamein. And I'm certain then that all of us present realise and understand fully the significance of this occasion and of the honour and the tribute we are so rightly paying to a man who has so rightly earned and proved beyond a shadow of a doubt to be so rightly worthy of it. Mr. Alderman, I realise that there are many members of the Council present, and indeed many members of this audience, who have known and served with you for longer than I have, and who no doubt have stored up in their memories far greater personal knowledge of your loyal service during the last 40 years than I have. And I hope that they, and you, sir, will therefore forgive me if I do not mention in detail many of the great services that you have given. And in any case, they would be so numerous, sir, that I rather suspect that in the fullness of time you have probably forgotten many of them yourself. In fact, Mr. Alderman, the greatest problem that I, and for that matter anyone else, would have to face at a ceremony like this is the question: how does one pay adequate tribute in the space of a few moments or a few minutes to a man who has given 40 years of his life to public service? Nevertheless, sir, I would like you and everyone else to know that I mean it most sincerely when I say that I regard it as the most important event of my mayoral year to be entrusted with the responsibility of making this speech of appreciation to you on behalf of the town. However, perhaps I may be permitted to give one example of what I consider to be your attention to detail in matters of committee work. You will forgive me, sir, if I say I regard it as being rather humorous, and I'm sure that after all these years you will also. For I'm told that just after the end of the last war, when you were the chairman of the Public Health Committee, it was decided to pay a series of visits to the numerous dairymen's establishments which came under the jurisdiction of the Health Committee. And in your usual thorough and competent manner, you arranged for the whole of the committee to take part in these visits at 8 o'clock in the morning. These visits, sir, I can see that you're bringing, by your expression, that it's bringing it back to your memory. These visits were carried out over a period of several weeks. Now, this in itself is highly commendable. But I further understand that, not content with this, it was also decided on many occasions that the product should be sampled. Mr. Alderman, ladies and gentlemen, I can think of no greater devotion to public duty by you and your fellow committee members than the sampling of glasses of milk at 8 o'clock in the morning. I am indeed glad to relate, sir, that it left no permanent scar upon you. But I think that that little story shows perfectly the lengths to which you have always been prepared to go to make sure that everything was right. Now, sir, although this freedom scroll, which I shall shortly ask you to accept, is chiefly in recognition of your work for the borough, none of us here have lost sight of the fact that your public service has stretched far beyond the boundaries of this town of Warwick, a fact which is acknowledged by the presence of so many distinguished guests here this afternoon from all over the county and beyond. And I know, and here I have, sir, very much in mind your local public service, that it will add to the pleasure of this occasion for you that this scroll and this casket have both been beautifully designed and made by local talent. We are indebted to Mr. Donald Quantrill, lecturer at the Mid-Warwickshire School of Art, who did all the work on the scroll, and to Mr. Trevor Guest, who made this wonderful casket, and to Mr. Maurice Kelly, head of the School of Art, for his invaluable assistance and advice in this matter. And I'm very pleased to say, Mr. Alderman, that these three gentlemen are present with us this afternoon. So, Alderman Guy Montague Nelson, O.B.E, DL, JP, may I ask you to accept the honorary freedom of the Borough of Warwick, and also this scroll and casket as a permanent reminder to you and as visible evidence to all and sundry of the high regard, the esteem and the affection in which you are held by countless numbers. May I thank you on behalf of all your fellow citizens for the 40 years of your lifetime that you have so selflessly devoted to their well-being. And I am sure, sir, that when the history of these past 40 years in Warwick is written, your name will figure most prominently amongst it. My warmest congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, Alderman Guy Montague Nelson.
Mr. Mayor, my Lord Bishop, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me thank you, Mr. Mayor, for all the kind things you have said about me and the stories you have told. They certainly have brought back a memory of that. I do remember visiting various dairies about the town. You have just bestowed on me, Mr. Mayor, the honorary freedom of our beloved town of Warwick. As you have said, it is the highest honour which the town can bestow on anyone. And I can assure you that I shall appreciate this scroll and this casket above all my possessions. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but when I do, I should like also to have a word with the people who have been instrumental in producing it, because from a first glance I've had over towards the town clock, and now from here it looks very nice. May I take this opportunity of thanking the Council for offering me this honour, and you, Mr. Mayor, for arranging this happy gathering for Mrs. Nelson and myself, where so many of our friends have paid us the compliment of attending. Now, the word freedom is on most of our lips at present. You hear it all over the place. There's freedom from want and freedom from fear, freedom practically from the cradle to the grave. In fact, there's so much freedom that we're in the process, I'm afraid, and in very great danger of becoming serfs to a central bureaucracy. Well, now, the freedom which you have conferred on me, Mr. Mayor, is an honorary one, and to my mind that makes it far more valuable. And I hope that all public service in the future will still remain to be honorary and voluntary, and that the opportunity for it will be as local as possible. It always used to be said that Warwick was half asleep. It used to appear in the paper about once every month. And I think it's probably true to say that we always have taken rather longer than other places to look at innovations which have been suggested to us. Nevertheless, I think it has enabled us, while we have been doing that, to take a more balanced view of the town as a whole, and I hope we shall continue to, shall we say, hasten slowly to the present aim of a population of 25,000 without losing any of the undoubted charm of Warwick. As you have said, Mr. Mayor, I have been on this council for, well, rather a long time. I'm not going to start at the beginning, but there are one or two occasions which I stand out in my memory, such as reading in the marketplace the abdication of Edward VIII, and that was a very sad occasion. However, it was followed soon afterwards by the proclamation of King George VI, and the one thing that stands out in my memory there are those wonderful street teas which the people of Warwick organised to celebrate the coronation. Then came the war, and I remember leading a service in the marketplace on a Sunday evening, one thing. Then at the beginning of the war, the council did away with all committees except the General Purposes Committee, and they appointed a sort of triumvirate of Alderman Forbes, Alderman Ansell and myself, and we did the sort of day-to-day business of the council and had a GP once a month. But when it came to the statutory monthly meeting, there really wasn't a great deal to do. And I remember getting over one meeting in 2.5 minutes flat. And I think that's a record which is very unlikely to be beaten now. There is just one of what I call my outside jobs which I would like to mention, and it wasn't until the town clerk read it out on the scroll that I realised that I have been chairman of the governors of Warwick School for 30 years. Seems to me it's far too long, and I must find a suitable time to retire quickly. Nevertheless, I do feel that under their present headships, the schools have never stood better in reputation with the public, and they stand very high in a list of Warwick's assets. Now, Mr. Mayor, without wishing to belittle any of the efforts of our new councillors, I would like to say how sorry I am that the council is going to be deprived of the benefit of your wise advice and for it has always been very sincere and unbiased, and I sincerely hope that after a short holiday, or rest if you like to call it that, that we shall once again see you in our council chamber. And finally, Mr. Mayor, let me very sincerely thank you and the council and the burgesses of Warwick for the very great honour they have done me today. And now, Mr. Mayor, to further mark this occasion, will you please accept from me this replica of the Warwick vase, and it is from me and my family, if I may put it that way. I think we must suffer from some form of municipal madness, because there have been four of my members have been mayors. I saw it in the paper the other day that it's just 100 years ago that one was, and my grandfather, who had this particular vase made to celebrate his silver wedding, he was mayor just 50 years ago, and several other members of my family have been members of the council at one time or another. So I would like to offer you this to the town, Mr. Mayor, as I hope to mark another occasion. Where a little later in the proceedings, I'll ask you if I may perhaps fill the bowl, and then perhaps we could drink a toast to the prosperity of Warwick. Will you please accept this bowl on behalf of the town?
All right. Yes. Mr. Alderman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to accept on behalf of the town of Warwick this beautiful replica of the famous Warwick vase. I'm sure that it will serve as a constant reminder of the part that the Nelson family, despite their municipal madness, as you so describe it, have played in the history of this borough for many, many years. And if I may, sir, if I could read out the inscription which you've so kindly had placed on this, I'm sure it will be of great interest to everyone. This replica of the Warwick vase was presented to the town of Warwick by Alderman Guy Montague Nelson, O.B.E, D.L.J.P, on the occasion of his being granted the honorary freedom of the borough, 13th of May 1968. The vase was cast to commemorate the silver wedding of his grandfather, Sir Montague Nelson, KC.M.G, Mayor of Warwick, 1918. And on behalf of the town, sir, I thank you most warmly for this wonderful gift. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to ask the Mayoress if she would kindly present them with the best wishes of the council and of the town to Mrs. Nelson.
Mayoress, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much for this wonderful surprise. Very lovely. I appreciate this beautiful bouquet all the more as I can see that the flowers have been chosen specially to suit our home. In my diary I'd marked today as Guy's Day, but you have made it my day, our day. Thank you very much.
No, would you like to? No.
Well, they're not for me, ladies and gentlemen. This is as big a surprise to me as it is to you, and as it's going to be to my wife, the Mayoress. Great. And ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the formal part, and I hope the very pleasant start of the proceedings of this great day for Alderman and Mrs. Nelson, and also for the town of Warwick. And so I will formally declare this part of the proceedings closed, and I would ask the mace bearer to lift the mace. I shall then escort Alderman and Mrs. Nelson into the antechamber, into the anteroom, where members of the council will follow in order to congratulate Alderman Nelson. And also could I ask that other distinguished guests remain seated for a few moments in order to give some of our staff time to clear out some of the chairs to make room to bring Alderman Nelson back in, and also for all of you to have a little cup of tea.
The ceremony over and the proceedings drawn to a close, Alderman and Mrs. Nelson, accompanied by the Mayor and Mayoress and the Town Clerk, preceded by the mace, repair to the anteroom adjoining the courthouse. After partaking of light refreshments, the honoured citizen, together with Mrs. Nelson, returned to the ballroom, there to mingle with their many guests, by whom congratulations are bestowed upon the recipient of this honour. This recording on magnetic tape is made by a representative of the Warwick and Leamington Amateur Tape Recording Society at the request of the Warwick Borough Council.